All right, so I am pulling up, I've got our just our the view that y'all see. I'm logged in as a student right now, which is why you see this weird purple kind of, frame. But I wanted to kind of take this time to go over our assignments. So obviously you've got your weekly activities, and essentially those are, marked down by the minute papers, which y'all have been doing. So you go ahead and give me feedback if you have questions there. And you always have the ability to, I just wanted to let y'all know while I've got you here that if you miss something one week, like one of the activities for that week, you can always go back and retake the quiz and like hit all of them, and that'll be reflected in the grade. So there's some flexibility built in there as well with the minute papers, in case you miss something in a particular week. Uh, so let's go ahead and I'm going to go to modules because this is how I, learned how to do this as a student and how it makes the most sense to me. Just so that you can see, this is where I'm going to be putting this recording in this particular one right here, just the specific date and time. And then you'll notice that there's examples for the assignments as well. So as I go through and talk about the different assignments, I'll try to do them in chronological order, but they definitely build on each other. And so you can go to the examples for assignments here. And I've also tried to put them in like with the actual assignment itself. Um, so yeah, that piece is there. And then if we go to assignments on the left here, cool. So it's showing me as these are overdue because I'm looking at them as a student. But if you take a look, do, do, do. So you've got your individual meeting that's going to be due October 20th. So a good chunk of folks have already scheduled their one-on-one with me. It's just this. It's like we're meeting on Zoom. We say, hey, if there's any way I can support you, let me know. Just getting to know each other a bit and just say, hey, we're humans. That's cool. And checking in about how everything's going. Um, that's literally all it is. So pretty simple and straightforward. If you want to get that scheduled, the Calendly link is in there. And I'm updating my hours. I've added some recent like Saturday and Sunday hours as well, just because I know not everybody has availability, the hours that I've provided. Anywho, if we go back to the other one. Okay, so the next thing that's like going to come up as being due is your not just the skills demonstration like the recorded session, but you've got your check-in, and that's going to be due the 29th. This is a quiz that's not really graded, but gives me an idea of where y'all are at with your kind of practice partners and the recorded session. I know this is super confusing and there's a lot of little parts to it, but I promise it gets like it sinks in eventually and like makes a little more sense. Um, so the skills demonstration check-in is a 3-question survey. Um, it's literally just who's going to be your client so that I can track whether or not you need to get a consent form filled out. So this can be your practice partner and another MSW student, or MSU student. Um, you do need to have like a selected client for this. And if it is somebody that is not like, it could be somebody that you work with or that kind of thing, you do need to have a consent form signed, because I'm going to be watching it and your group peer members are going to also be watching it to review. Y'all are kind of lucky. Your supervisors don't have to review it. When I was a student, my internship supervisor had to review it, and it was kind of it was another piece of the puzzle that has been dropped off. Um, so obviously you need a client, um, whether or not you've scheduled your session, with your clients. So the reason, I'm asking about this early on like this is because you're like, it's 12 minutes. It's not going to be that bad. But then actually, like, sitting down and doing it can be time consuming. And then just getting all the pieces in place can be a little difficult as well. So definitely, I would recommend doing this earlier in October if you have the ability to, or like mid-October. again, this isn't about like getting it right or being great at this from the beginning. It's just about the practice and being able to get feedback. And the main assignment at the end is just essentially a reflection about what you learned in the process and what you would want to work on if this is something that you're wanting to pursue, more full time. Um, the other piece of this is your peer group session. So you record your individual 12-minute session, but then you also need to, with your peer groups that I've assigned, sit down and kind of watch everybody's. Um, you don't have to do this like all on a Zoom call or anything. You can do this in person. You can also like schedule times to meet as a group and then just like, ahead of time watch everybody's different sessions and then like record your own notes to then share. But it is important that that's scheduled just so that everybody, kind of participates in the feedback, process. Um, does that piece make sense? And this is just the quiz, right? This is just like whether or not you scheduled these things. And you can say no, and that's fine, but I'll follow up with you.
So yeah, it's the check-in, but it's like the minute papers basically. But
Ex-
it's like specific to the practice work.
Exactly. And so this is like due on the 29th, and this just clues me in as to whether or not like if I've got like everybody's like no, we haven't scheduled anything, then I'm like okay, I need to, start being more active and participatory in helping to schedule some times, right? I'll also say to week 10, I think it is. Let me go to the module. Week 10, you don't have any work for this course. And so week 10 is actually a really good time. Yeah, you just work on your assignment. So there's no class week 10 so that you can work on this and do this instead. Um, but so that was just the quiz part. And again, that's me checking in, making sure y'all, if anybody needs help or is having trouble with their peer groups or their practice partner, then I can kind of step in and make sure that folks have what they need. But if we go back to the assignments, the recorded session itself, I know seems very like this can be like the most agonizing thing for folks. Nobody likes looking at themselves on camera. I hate it. Like, and I have a theater degree and I hate it. Um, this is awkward, right? But the only way to have it be less awkward is to just do it more and more. And if you get through kind of the initial kind of awkwardness of it, through practice with, this type of class, then at least when you move forward, if this is kind of something you're wanting to do later on or something that ends up getting thrown on your plate, uh, you have the ability of just kind of pulling this out, of your pocket because you've already had these kind of initial conversations that were a little weird and figured out some things that worked for you personally and didn't. So, um, let's go to the recorded session. So there are several pieces to the recorded session. I know it's confusing. Uh, bear with me. I did summarize it in the that top module. Um, just where I just kind of put the examples. So essentially the recorded session, it's 12 minutes, um, like 10 to 12 minutes, where it's going to be you and your client. And if you have the skills checklist pulled up, that's usually helpful. And this is like the thing that this is the thing we're consulting in class, right? Like when we're with our practice partners. Um, this is information that you can pull ahead of time, like the client's name, whatever identities they share or are important for the session itself. And then just self-reflection, right? Uh, the skills checklist itself, part of what we do, which can be very difficult on telehealth, right? Um, but is still possible, is nonverbal communication, right? Open and accessible posture, congruent facial expression, just, that we're not just like, or like picking our nose, right? And eye contact can be hard, especially online. But there are ways of kind of making it work and finding that rhythm with your practice partner and what feels natural to you. This is I was telling Chandler and Martha, this is not something that you're gonna hit as well demonstrated across the board. Like if you did all these things in 12 minutes, that would be bad. This is just, keeping in mind all of these things so that when you do have somebody in front of you who is a client, this kind of stuff is just like muscle memory. It kind of falls away and you can just be present with the person, because you're covering your bases. So we've talked about like opening the session, introducing yourself, the timeline for the session, describing your role, the confidentiality piece, mandatory reporting, that kind of thing, and how the client would want to use the session. I do recommend having your client pick something out that is kind of on the lower end of stress level, right? So, in the example that Dr. Perry and I recorded, which is available in the modules and in like the assignment itself. Um, I picked something that was already pretty resolved, but that I'm still dealing with emotionally. So, like for example, when I was a student, all of us students were, doing this for each other, and it was like COVID. So we were all talking about all these things that were so big and hard and difficult, and we want this to be something that can be kind of on the lower end of stress. So, a difficulty thing at work or, you know, uh, I can't think of something right now, but something not like, I lost a very close person to me and I'm, really having difficulty with the grief, or it's very recent, or, anything that you feel uncomfortable with. We don't want to go too deep into these things. It's just more about that practice. Um, so obviously, wanting to try to demonstrate active listening and information gathering, asking open-ended questions, uh, seeking clarification, offering a summary, potentially at the end. But, in general, if somebody kind of gives you like some word vomit where it's just like, here's all the story, and it's like the first 5 minutes, and all you do is kind of smile and nod, that's okay. You can summarize it back to them so that they know that you've heard. Um, I do recommend having like a timer nearby. I actually like the insight timer that I demonstrated, which y'all couldn't hear the bell for in that initial lecture that I did. I recommend having like a bell or something like, hey, we're going to hear this noise as the session's closing so that we know that our time's coming to an end. You can do whatever kind of feels natural to you. Some people are really good at kind of keeping that natural time. I am not. So that's why I used the bell for when I did mine. Um, and then, yeah, just this is something that when you go back and watch it yourself, things that you can kind of look for, right? Um, we also are asking that you transcribe your words, like what you said in the session. Like the goal is to kind of not speak as much as possible. Not like, to the point where it's like we're just staring at each other on the screen and it's super awkward. But like, that when you're asking a question or the intro obviously is something separate and the closure is something separate, but like that center of the bulk of the time should be like, can you tell me a little more about that? Or wow, so it sounds like you're feeling a lot of grief around this. How are you dealing with it in your day to day? Or how are these symptoms impacting your ability to do your day to day life? Those kinds of things. And we've got our little upload checklist at the end here too. So you're recording for like 12 minutes. The goal is to kind of hit on a good chunk of these things. You need to open the session. That's the big thing. Let the client speak more than yourself as much as possible. Some people it is like prying teeth, like, and there will be silences, and that is okay. Um, and then close the session out in that like 10 to 12 minute time frame. Um, You record that, you save it, you upload it via Yuja. There are instructions in the assignment itself. And then your completed this document here. So the contextual information up top, and then your skills checklist and your process and general observations and overall comments, and the just your words, what you actually wrote or said. You also need a signed consent form again if they're not an MSU student. So if I go back to the recording, right? So that's kind of like the framework. That's the meat of what all this is. Um, so you've got your clients. You need the consent form if they're not an MSU student. If they are, you're groovy. Talk to your client ahead of time to make sure that they understand that we're not going down the deep, dark road. We've got 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes, and this is kind of something that needs to be a little bit like something that's not like really pressing that you would need to talk to like a therapist for and have the full 45 to 53-minute session or 60-minute session. So make sure they have something in mind that they're going to want to talk about. You schedule, you film it, record it. I do want to make sure that y'all see that we're not supposed to use romantic partners, family members, friends, supervisor, or other leaders. So like a coworker might be okay. If you're not wanting to do with your practice partner. But this is basically, I mean, this is the code of ethics right here, right? We don't treat people that we have a relationship with, right? So we want that to be true for this as well. Do do do. Also, please let me know if you're seeing like having a different client, um, which that's part of the quiz. So a lot of redundancies built into this too. It feels overwhelming and confusing, I know, but I promise you. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Here, let me drop my hand back down. Um, so the submission for the assignment is the recording and our own assessment and the checklist and everything. So we'll submit the checklist through Canvas, I presume, and then the recording through UJ, you said?
Yep, which you'll see too, the peer the peer group feedback session could technically be after the 10th of November, but I want y'all to have a good chunk of time to be able to write your reflection paper. So we have this as part of this part, establish your like set a time to meet with your peer groups so that everybody's got their recordings and like can watch everybody else's recordings in the meantime.
Ah, okay. So the actual recorded session is going to be with just the one partner. And then we will, after we've all uploaded it, all the people in our group will find a time to meet together, having reviewed all the videos, and then offer our own feedback in that.
Yep. Um,
And I'm
so
sorry if you touched on this already, but is there not a rubric, but is there like a framework by which we offer feedback in that session?
yes, which is actually why I don't have lecture 8 up yet. Because I ended up, so I actually, when I was a student here, one of the things that was very bothersome to me is that it was like it was like I was a novice and I was like meeting with other novices and we're all just like, I don't know. Like, I think it was fine, but I don't know. And so feedback could be like really icky and like not great and not super helpful. Um,
Right.
so uh as part of so we already talked about these things, right? You prepare for your session, you record the session, um, and then you review and upload your video. When you transcribe your words, just your words as the therapist or the clinician or the social worker in that, you can use a transcription service or like upload it to Yuja and like wait for the captions to come up and you can use those to help. Um, but this is how you manually upload your media content to Yuja. So this is your instructions right here on how to do that piece to submit it for um, like for me to be able to receive it. And then this is how you can share it with your peers. Um, so meeting with your peer group, that's kind of this piece. Um, Definitely make sure that everybody kind of is like viewing these videos in like a private setting, like because stuff can come up. Um, and this is the proposed structure for critical feedback amongst peers that I just updated. So I'm going to open this in a new tab so we can kind of review this real quick. So essentially, I when I was an MFA student, Liz Lerman's critical response process for artwork, because art is like it's kind of like therapy, like it's personal, there's emotions involved, right? And anytime we're critiquing ourselves or others' work, whatever kind of work it is, it can be emotional and rough. So this is kind of a framework to make it accessible for folks and also to make it consensual because like I noticed when I was just when I was a student anywhere, anytime there's this whole like peer process, you tend to dive straight into people's opinions about things, and it doesn't always feel like something you want to receive. And so this gives you an opportunity to say, no, I'm good. I don't need that kind of feedback because you might not know what you're looking for from this process, but being able to kind of think about it in this way helps give a framework, is essentially the long and the short of it. Feel free to read through the whole document, but like this could be like a traumatic process for some. Um, and so that's why I offered this kind of framework. Um, let's see here. I had a friend once tell me that advice that is not solicited is criticism. And so if we're kind of forced to be in these peer groups and give and receive feedback, like, but we're not really told what to do or how to do it or what we're looking for, how is that not criticism or received as criticism? So assume best
I
intent.
feel like
Oh, go ahead.
the opposite might also be maybe even more likely is that people all we can think to say to each other is like, yeah, no, great, good job, I liked it.
Exactly. And to me, it's like that can almost feel worse because it's like, cool, what was the point? You know?
Right.
There's a way to like offer critical feedback and have it be a positive experience for everybody. I think this is one of those things that we're not really taught as people, but especially as students, like, and being in social work, but also being employees, future employees, those kind of things. Like we need to be able to give and receive critical feedback in a way that people can actually hear and receive and not feel criticized, which is doable, but you need a framework, right? So that everybody understands the rules. Um, so assume best intent and then ask before offering criticism or critical feedback. That's basically kind of it's a four-step process. Um, I recommend that you watch somebody's recorded session, and then when y'all meet, uh, the first thing you do is statements of meaning. So essentially, you watch the recorded session with your skills checklist in hand, and you just make notes to yourself about things that you observe, right? This is like anything that stood out to you, um, what you noticed about the clinician's nonverbal communication, or something cool that happened that was unexpected, or hey, I saw this principle that we learned in class actually, demonstrated here. That was cool. The main thing with the first portion of this is that we want to focus on what worked well and like what skills have successfully been demonstrated. Um, then we move into the peer receiving the feedback. So the person who's the clinician in the recorded session asks questions of their peers. Now, I know this can be a little intimidating too. It's like I don't know what I want to know. But you know, uh, I could ask like, did the way I opened my session sound authentic to you? Or what are some suggestions that y'all would have for me to do this differently, or to how would you have reacted to this other situation, you know? Um, so like the clinician in the recording gets to ask their peers specifically, questions, and the peers who are, giving feedback can express direct opinions. Um, it does help if you have a question or two ready to ask your peers about your recorded sessions. So, like when you're going through and reviewing it yourself, if you have a couple of questions for yourself, or if you know who your peers are in your peer group, you can be like, hey, cool. I can totally see this person does this thing, or I know this person has this particular internship and this expertise, and this came up in my session with this client. Like, how do I want to ask a question about their experience with this, or how they would phrase this thing, or approach this. It doesn't have to be super deep either. Again, I know this is like 10 to 12 minutes, but this makes it feel like, again, that you are an active and willing participant in giving and receiving this feedback, because you're empowered to ask your own question. Um, cool. Thanks, Martha. The recorded session will be up. Let me know if you end up having questions.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Yeah, you too. Um, the next piece is neutral questions. So, the peers critiquing the recorded session are free to ask neutral questions, meaning like, why did you decide to lead with this question? Or how did you feel when the client said this thing? Or what were the thoughts that you had? Why did you decide to use this tool, or why did you try or decide to go this route for a specific type of interaction, that kind of thing. So this is like, again, this isn't like, why did you suck? Like, it's more from that place of curiosity and non-judgment, of like questions about how they approached things in the moment and why they made those decisions in the moment. And then the last piece is folks' opinions. But going back to the top of the document, like, we tend to just skip all of the other pieces and go directly into this part. Um, it can feel overwhelming, shaming, unhelpful, like, or just, yeah, just kind of like that. Cool, everybody was great. Cool, thanks. Great. Because we don't know what to say or how to say it. Um, you can ask folks, like, I have some feedback about your opening. Do you mind if I give you my opinion about some verbiage you used? Is it okay? Um, or like, I have a thought about how you could do something differently. Is it okay if I share that? And that way, the person who is the clinician in that moment, receiving the feedback, can be like, well, no, this is feeling a little icky for me. I think I'm good right now, but thank you. That way, again, it's like, instead of going straight into, like, nobody's perfect at this. We all have stuff we can be learning. Um, Especially when we're beginning. This is awkward, and we're going through the motions here and trying to make sure we hit certain buckets. But at least this way, there is a way to say yes or no to that type of engagement. Did that already? Cool. Any questions about the proposed structure for critical feedback? Obviously, read through it. The idea is that you go through each of the 4 steps for each video that you review for the feedback session. And it's not like me talking about it is taking longer than it will actually take. Does that make sense?
I was going to ask, do you think like scheduling like an hour for the peer feedback session is realistic?
I would say if y'all have the ability of watching each other's videos ahead of time, um, you could do this in probably even like, you could do it like a tight, maybe 20 minutes, like 5 minutes each, even if that's kind of, if everybody's like ready to go and good to go into it. But like, I would say at least maybe half an hour. And then some people have like 3 people in their group and some people have 4. So probably at least half an hour if you're able to watch everybody's videos ahead of time. And then longer than that, like if you're going to need to watch them together. Or you can also kind of break it up too. Like it can be, let's watch this person's video and then meet this day, and then watch this person's video and meet that day. There are lots of different ways to kind of do it. It just depends on everybody's availability and what's going to work best for y'all. Does that make sense and sound good?
Yeah, gotcha.
Cool. Like this is not a prescribed part of the process. It's very much like whatever works for you is and your groups and your client. Like that's why we want you to do it, like to try to front load it because stuff always happens, right? So uh something else I would point out, make sure you do it's here somewhere. Like this is just again good guidelines, but if you have the ability to watch the videos ahead of time, that's great. Um, Definitely test this whole system, like however you're recording it, if it's via Zoom, Teams. I'm sure there are other, different like Google Meet, like however you're recording it, make sure you test it out with you and your client ahead of time because sound is important. Um, there is a FAQ page that I recommend you check out. Um, so I went ahead and already assigned peer groups. Let me know if there's an issue there. Some folks are in the same group. Uh, do, do, do. Um, these are just recommendations here, but like this piece here is important. We need to be able to see you and hear you. And your clients. So that's like test out your tech ahead of time to make sure that you capture it and make sure that you have it written down to hit record because I know that's frustrating. When you go through the whole thing and then you realize you didn't hit record. Um, you're not supposed to do therapy in 10 to 12 minutes. We know that that's not going to happen. That's not the goal. This is also another place where the directions on how to upload the media content to Yuja is and sharing that content. Um, if it's over 15 minutes, please redo it. If it's under 10 minutes, please redo it. So really it's like kind of 10 to 15-minute ballpark. Um, I can go back into the module and show you the examples for the assignment here. So again, this is that part one of the quiz. It's just those 3 questions, and it's more so for me to be able to check in where everybody's at. Here is a very shortened like version of what the part 2 of the assignment is, which is the recording. You record your session. You transcribe your portion of the text um, from the recorded session, and you do like your self-assessment. I can clarify that better here. If you have the ability to, you meet with your peer groups and you complete your peer group reviews for your peer group members ahead of time using the proposed structure, and then you just submit things to me. So here is where Dr. Perry's video, where they are the therapist and I'm the client. So this is a Yuja video. It's 13 and a half minutes long. And it's not perfect. You'll see this is Dr. Perry's example of their completed skills demonstration. And so what they've done here is they wrote down in their comments. So you're just going to do the paper, right? But they wrote comments about why they did something a particular way. Let me see if it's gonna. We'll see if it'll open for me. Cool. So this is Perry, peer group members. So this portion here, you don't need to complete. This is just something, this is like Perry's process that they wanted to share so that you can understand the approach here. So the contextual information that you see in the skills demonstration here, right? So this is that part. Uh, doo, doo, doo. So I'm the client, so this is the information here. This is how Dr. Perry included that information, and, brief summary of the session. You can even copy and paste to capture their exact words. if you're using like a transcription service. Um, and look, Dr. Perry even says that they were super nervous before pressing record. Um, like, this is not a natural thing, this whole recorded, role play therapy is not a natural thing. So even folks who are very successful and who have been doing this for a long time, it's weird, and can be anxiety inducing. Um, and so, yeah, just, yeah, uh, they, um, included comments for themselves about, the video here. So this is the recorded session. This is how Dr. Perry assessed themselves. And this is the type of thing that you would turn in. Um, and you don't have to put the comments here. That's the only difference, I would say. Okay. But yeah, you got your upload checklist at the bottom. So this portion here is the words used. So this is Perry's words, right? And then this is why they utilize those words. If you're using a script, like I had a script that I used that I just read off the screen for when I was introducing myself and doing the mandated reporter piece and the confidentiality piece. They used a transcription service, so you can do that too. And we went a little long. We were at 13 and a half minutes, so yours will probably not be as intensive there. Um, let's see here. So yeah, they went through the skills checklist and wrote comments in each thing, so that's why you're seeing it be a little longer. Some general observations and overall comments about oneself. And then this piece was that longer piece here that you're seeing. They made it kind of like gray and white to make it a little easier to track. Any questions about this portion of it?
I guess so. Some of the information that we're gathering up front, I mean, in the interest of minimizing how much we're talking during a 12-minute session, like the name and pronouns and some of the stuff, I mean, we will theoretically have already gone over all those things with our practice partners if that's who we're using as our client, right?
Totally.
So
So
the
that
formal
would be ahead of time. Yep. So Perry even says I asked this information before the recording.
Okay,
Yep.
great. So the formal piece is really about introducing ourselves, the mandated reporting, and then the closing at the end and having a maybe a more formal like summary and wrapping the thing up. But we can kind of introduce it and then just dive into the skills basically, right?
Yeah, and honestly, like I know some folks have done this before, especially in this class, but a lot of it is just like, so what would you like to use this time to talk about today? Or how would you like to use our time today? What's been going on? Tell me, what you'd like to talk about today. And then,
Right.
the rest of it is just like this can be that's like an open-ended question right there, right? If something's a little wonky or weird, like it's literally just being present with the person, and trying to keep a track of the time and doing the best you can to, um, you know, introduce yourself, make sure you hit the marks that you need to here. And then this piece is kind of like gonna happen. Like, and the nonverbal is gonna happen. Like we all do this stuff being humans, right? Um, so you don't have to like worry so much about that. It's more so when you go back and take a look, it'd be like, oh, okay, I say a lot, you know, um, or literally just said it. Uh, and then if there was something you could have got clarification on, or if there's like the storyline doesn't quite make sense and you can ask clarifying questions if you need. And then, a great way to end out the session is to offer a summary of the session, right? So one of the hard things about being a therapist is like sometimes folks come in and it's just like la, 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 and trying to keep an eye on the time while honoring and being present with them can be difficult. So this is also kind of like trying to find a way to close things naturally, when it's not always going to be natural, you know, because somebody might be in the middle of something. If they're going through something big and emotional, like obviously we want to kind of give them some time to like cool off a little bit, but um yeah, we don't want to tell them what to do. That's the basic thing at the end of here. Um you can ask folks like what's worked in the past? What have you done during times when this has happened before? You know, what's worked? Have you tried doing those things now? You know, what do you think would help? Uh so it's just like a 12-minute recorded session that you will be able to forget at the end of the semester. Um, nobody likes to, you know, watch themselves on video. We all have things that we can be better on. I do for sure. Um, so it's just practice, and then you can also observe yourself as kind of like an outside observer and get some added feedback from your peers and then from me as well. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So, we got that. To do the examples for the assignments. Again, this is all, if you go to modules, this is all up top here. Um, your peer group assignments, your assigned partners, the examples for the assignments is where this kind of breakdown is to just be like all in one place, super clear, super easy. Watch the video. It's super weird. I don't like watching myself. So like even I was the client and I'm like, whoa. Um, this is also a blank skills demonstration template. So you can see Perry's here and then this here. And then one of the next optional meetings like this, I'm going to talk about the evaluating your efforts part. Um, when you're doing the meeting with your peer group, definitely take notes about what folks are saying, because that's going to be a portion of, you know, the evaluating your efforts piece. So that's also going to be looped into the paper at the end. But there will be an example of that. So like Dr. Perry's going to write this paper as an example from this video. So you get to see the full through line of kind of what we're looking for. This is kind of one of those things where like you do it and that's the thing. And you can't get it wrong, you know, unless you like start yelling at the client, which I don't think anybody's going to do. I hope not, at least. Uh, but then again, that's just, it's good to know, right? Um, you know, there are different skills that can be implemented if that's kind of where we go. So, yeah. Anything else that you think would be helpful while I've got you, Chandler?
No, I think I'm good, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. I will say for you and for the other folks watching the video, if you do have any questions, let me know. I'm happy to answer. I'm also going to try to, you know, keep uploading. I might even do little videos if they're needed, just to demonstrate like or review these kinds of things. Because I know it's a lot of information, it's a lot to read, and it seems like it's a lot to track, but it's more so just you do the recording, you follow the steps, you'll be good.
Sounds good to me.
Sweet. Well, thank you for coming. I hope I
Thank
hope
you too.
you have a good rest of your night. And yeah.
Sorry, I'm finishing dinner.
You're
Okay, thanks. Have a good night.
Yep, you too. Alrighty. Bye.